Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. I am your host, Rudy Reyes. Look, this won't ever become any type of stalemate show, unlike a lot of the podcasts that are out there right now. But rest assured, we have a fantastic show lined up for you today. And look, prior to having this show and prior to podcasting and before it became a sexy thing to do, it was essentially starting for fan experiences and understand who these players are outside of mere athleticism and accolades within their respective sport. When someone engages with their audience, it becomes, well, much more endearing and welcoming and very dynamic in of itself. Welcome a first-time guest here on the Rude Dog Show and a colleague who's studied broadcast journalism, a first-timer. Please welcome the one, the only, Ryan Sack. Ryan, the show, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rudy. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and we're really talking about something a little bit different. Of course, everybody knows that baseball season is upon us, and
we're all excited. We're all excited.
I'm very excited. You're right. But we're going to discuss a season that many in one particular fan base and some of those analysts in the majors have designated this as a no-win season after this team has up its franchise player, along with some other critical moves by releasing an up-and-coming pitcher while moving forward with a supernova of sorts. And, of course, at this point, you should already know who we're talking about. And if you don't,
yes,
and there's a segue that needs to be had if you're not sure. But, of course, most certainly know this team very well and who I'm referring to. And maybe my next guest will certainly shed some of his own thoughts into coming back. And I don't mean in the capacity that he left, but he comes back to a team which doesn't necessarily need his skills on the diamond, but they will need him to hold down the fort in a very different way. And in the broadcast booth in his debut for the Pirates in an inaugural season for him as an analyst and director of player development at Middle Tennessee State University. Welcome. And you can follow him on Twitter at the Fort McKenry. Welcome, Michael McKenry, to the Rude Dog Show. Michael, thank you for taking your time out. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, guys, and what an introduction. I like it.
That's the only way I know how to do
what? For the people out there that don't know why Mike was nicknamed Fort McKenry, it's after the actual Fort McKenry, which played a role in the War of 1812. And his former college coach, Jim McGuire, told me that on the phone. Just a little tidbit for you.
Yeah, and if you don't know that story, it is incredible. So I encourage everybody that's listening, I encourage you guys to go back in history and read about how the flag survived. It's really neat. It's actually even more honorable knowing that story is why the Star Spangled Banner and everything was actually made. So it's really, really cool to be able to be just a hint a part of that.
You have a connection to that.
I have some connection there, and it's so cool.
Yes.
Well, the connection couldn't be any better between what you did as a back catcher for the Pirates and basically throughout your career. But, of course, you were dubbed the Fort because of the inability for players, and we're going to talk about a specific game in a moment. But what I'd like to kind of go over is that you were a Fort for a reason. You had some pretty decent stats as a player, Michael. You debuted. Yeah. They didn't boo you, but you debuted for the Colorado Rockies on September 8th, of course, close to my birthday, of course, a pre-Christmas gift into Major League Baseball. For those that don't know, had a .238 batting average. He had 29 home runs and 103 runs batted in. As you would suspect, and I would expect, that any catcher knows how to hit the ball because he knows what he's looking at from being behind the plate. He has played with the Colorado Rockies, the Pirates, another stint with the Rockies, this time for a very, actually a little bit longer of a time, for a year in the St. Louis Cardinals.
Had his best season there in Colorado, that 2014 season.
Mm-hmm.
It was your second stint.
398 on base percentage. Pretty good.
Yeah, made some adjustments. Got to play a little bit more, too.
That'll do it.
You know, when you're drafted by the Rockies, and I don't know a lot of players that have, I haven't really spoken to any players that have been drafted by the Rockies. Was it somewhere you really wanted to be, or did it even matter? Did you just want to be there and just be a part of an organization in Major League Baseball?
Great question.
You know, I never thought about it. Like when guys talk about the team they want to be drafted by, or, even though the guys are talking about being traded now and stuff, I was always a guy that just wanted to show up, and whatever guys were in the locker room, those are my teammates, and I live and die for those guys on that given day. I think there's no other way to do it. I played for, I think, 10, 11 teams over my career. I was fortunate to play with a lot of different guys, but, if you're on the other side of the lines, I'm trying to, beat you down on that day. Whatever I had to do to win, and I was going to do whatever I had to do to protect my teammates and be the best teammate I could be on any given day. So what team or what uniform I had or I was getting was an honor, just to put on my uniform, put on my spikes, go out there and play and honor that uniform and honor my teammates as I do it. So whatever name I had on the front of my jersey is all that mattered at that moment.
Oh, wow.
When I look at the back of your jersey, it still says McKenry. So it doesn't matter what's on the front, it's what's on the back and what you did at the plate in your respective position on any given team. Something interesting happened along the way. Somehow, some shape or form, you were sent off to the Red Sox traded for Daniel Turpin. When you were traded, and it was to the Pirates, and I know at that point it didn't really matter. You wanted to play regardless of what, where, when, how, and in what capacity. But you were traded to the Pirates for cash and for obviously a player to be named later on.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at you in a Pirates uniform, you faced off against a future Pirate in J.A. Happ.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to get that first home run? I mean, was it something you had been working on as far as your striking, as far as finding where your zone is? Or was it just something that you found to just be much more dynamic than others did when you hit that first home run against the Chicago Cubs?
So, going back, I had an opportunity going over to Boston. It was a little bit of a whirlwind. My first trade was on the roster, just got called up the year before. I get kind of in a situation, I'm playing really well in AAA, and I get stuck. And I got traded as a favor, actually. And I'll never forget, Theo constantly was good about talking to his players. That's why he's such a good GM. That's why the Cubs won the World Series recently. Because that man called me and said, hey, I put you in a pickle. You've played really well. You deserve this. Go kick some butt, and good luck. Hope to see you down the line. And I'll never forget it. Gary Francona called me too. Ben Sherrington, they're all part of that crew over there at the time. They called me. I'll respect those three guys forever. But then I got to the Pirates. And to be honest, you talk about my swing, you talk about all that stuff. A lot of my career I was a backup catcher, so my main focus was the pitching staff. Always was, even when I started. So, I never thought about a homer. I never thought about anything else but winning that game and trying to do everything I can to make my pitcher better and to help my team. Sometimes that's a 10-pitch at bat. Sometimes that's, a walk. Sometimes that is a homer. But whatever I could do to help my team, But I knew, more importantly, if I could get behind the plate, run that game the way the guy needed it to be run, not the way the scouting report, but that guy, having empathy in my mind and understand how that guy works and figuring out how to win, whether he had his A stuff or D stuff, and just go out and compete on every given day and let them know, hey, I was nicknamed the Fort for a reason because I'm not going to let anything by me, so please, let's get nasty right now.
Let's get nasty. Mike, I have a question about that first MLB hit. That was 2 days after you got called up by the Pirates. And it was off J.A. Happ, who was on the Astros at that time. Was that at Minute Maid Park?
Yes, it was.
I believe that I was at that game, actually.
Come on. Yeah, I didn't think I was ever going to get a hit, to be honest with you. My first day with the Pirates,
I think most players feel like that.
3 or 4 bullets, 2 diving catches. I was like, it's just not meant to be. I'm never going to get a hit. And then all of a sudden, base hit. And then every time I went to Minute Maid Park, I was in heaven because for some reason I loved hitting there.
What do you remember about that at bat that you got your first hit?
I remember it was, J.A. Happ, lefty love to pitch the ball inside, so it was a great matchup for me. And, you know, I just remember pushing out there and then ended up getting my second hit later on. So that was a really cool day for me. But the best part is I think we won the first 3 or 4 games I was there. We got in the first place really fast. Yeah.
Help the team, brother.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
Yes, sir.
Well, when you compete, you competed with ferocity. It was behind the plate. It was with whatever team you exhibited nothing but sportsmanship. But let's dive into a controversial play. You obviously should know which one I'm talking to. It was so out of whack that it appeared on nightly news on ABC. And I was and I was shocked. I was shocked to see that. I was shocked to see the play. I was shocked to see the tag that was not called by Jerry Meals at the plate. I was probably as livid as you were. Well, maybe. You were clearly upset. You were in the dugout. And I remember the look on your face of pure disbelief. Now, for those that don't know, there was no type of instant replay. They didn't call New York. They went to video, but it was only video determined in the local area. It did not go to New York. Nobody, overseen this or what. This isn't the NFL situation where they call up Al River on and make these types of calls. This is all local. So the home plate umpire, Jerry Beals, called Lugo safe when in fact he was out. How badly were you losing your mind at that point because of the clear video evidence on the screen?
You know, looking back at it now, I feel like it was kind of a precursor for video replay. You know, it's one of those plays. I think it's even considered one of the top 5 worst calls of all time now. 100%. So I think it's one of those plays that, you know, it'll be forever remembered to kind of boost into technology. So that's pretty cool. But at the time, the worst feeling in the world was it was the 19th inning. Daniel McCutcheon's on the mound. He's throwing he's got 5 1/3 innings going, and it was his off day. He had turfs on to start that game. He wasn't supposed to pitch. It was his 3rd day. They were trying to give him a little bit of rest. And that guy went out there and bulldogged for 5 innings, zeros all across the board, and then he loses the game like that. And you know what? Jerry Mills is a great umpire. I'll never take it away from him. He had 19 and almost 19 innings where he was great. He really was. And then he had 1 bad call, and it's just like an offensive lineman in football. All you got to do is mess up once, and that's all they remember. And that's what happened that night. And
that's very true.
At that point, you know, Daniel McCutcheon honestly probably wasn't ever the same, even in his career. You know, he pushed really hard, but that's also a huge ego check, and that's also a huge mental block that guys have in some situations. So I think there's a lot more at play than just a bad call, because I think it was a turning point in our season. I felt like we started to fall a little bit, but more than anything, I remember telling Jerry Mills, I didn't lose my head. I just said, Jerry, you were so good today. You're gonna be so disappointed in yourself when you go watch this. Now I walked off. I walked off because it wasn't worth it. Because, you know, I had an umpire later on that week tell me, hey, McKenry, you got to go in hard when you tag guys. And I just told him, I was like, listen, I'm not going to hit somebody if I don't have to, because I'm not going to ruin that guy's career for no reason just because you guys want me to tag him hard so you don't miss it. And I understood it, but then they changed that rule too, where you can't block the plate and you have to come in and out. The only time you have contact is if the ball takes you there. So, you know, I just think it was one of those times that it needed to happen just to change, you know, create some change.
How do you feel about that rule, Mike?
I hate the blocking the plate thing. I like the old school mentality. I get it, but as I've seen it, guys now are putting themselves in actually worse positions because they're reaching for the ball. They're putting their knee in awkward spots. So, like, and if you go back to the play that originated all with Buster Posey, he reached for the ball and he got hit.
Yes, he did.
It wasn't that he shuffled over and had a good base. And I get it, like, in the moment, whatever. But if you shuffle over and you have your base, I got hit a lot coming up through the minor leagues.
I'm a former catcher as well. I understand, not to the degree that you got hit, but I can only imagine.
Yeah, catcher is a catcher, man. Like,
yeah,
it's a great position, but I think there's room for it. But I think it would have been better if they said, hey, if you hit a guy on purpose when he doesn't have the ball, I think that could have been something kind of like the NFL. But I don't think they did it. Giving them the plate or whatever, because it puts too much in the umpire's hands. I think it's hard for them because they want to get it right, and it's hard for the player because they want to get it right. So it's kind of that gray area.
And the last thing that we need is the umpires having a bad relationship with the players, like what's going on in the NBA right now.
Well, yeah, and two, like, one run decides a lot of baseball games. So if they overturn it the wrong way and it's kind of in between, like they always say tie goes to the runner. The tie doesn't ever go to the runner. It depends on what the umpire wants or what he sees. Right. So at the end of the day, like, it changes everything in the matter of one game. And one game, as you've seen almost the last 3 or 4 years, one game has determined the wild card pretty steadily every year.
Detrimental.
Yep.
No doubt about it. And I think to go further, that rules in some capacity, regardless of what sport you play, can either do one of a few things. Keep the game safer, keep the game cleaner, and keep the game from getting out of control from an accuracy standpoint. Ryan, you were talking about the NBA and how back in the day, players used to approach referees in more of a friendly demeanor. Nowadays, you have players who are confronting them, talking, smack to them. So if they get teed up, big deal.
Social media.
That's all about perception. More so specifically when you talk about real time.
I'm talking about them bashing officials on social media.
Well, again, that goes back to having a professional demeanor, and that has a lot to do with how other people approach the game as well, up and coming players, regardless of what sport that you play. And I think baseball explicitly with somebody who's a home plate umpire, just like a head linesman or a front court judge or whatever that may be, they have to be able to have the thickest skin on the court, on the diamond, and on the football field, because if they don't, and they allow someone to pull them out of their zone, then they become testy. Then the game becomes testy, and now it raises to another level that it probably shouldn't have been. So in the case of Jerry Meals, when you look at Meals, I guarantee that to this day, whether he thinks about it or not, helped change the course and the direction of what is to be instant replay.
It just hated it had to be him. It just hated that it had to be him and it had to be us. But that's part of it. And I think a lot of times the media and the players and the officials have a hard time remembering we're all just human. Full of mistakes, full of mishaps.
Especially the fans.
And I think that's what we need to remember, especially with these replays and with everything else, is like, this is just a tool in our tool belt to help us. You just need to throw the ego out and understand this is all part of it. We just need to use every bit of information we can and go from there, because there's no place in any of these games, because it is a game at the end of the day. It is a business, but it is a game, for ego. You can't have ego and things be okay. It always ends up where fire comes in, and then you start pouring gasoline on that fire, and it's not good. No. So I think if you remember that it's a human element, and you remember, hey, you're not in those shoes, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes or in his life. He's doing the best he can, I promise, and he's also the best of the best. If you're playing in the major leagues or if you're umpiring in the major leagues, you are the best of the best. Whether you're the worst umpire or the best umpire, you're still the best of the best, the 1% of 1%, period.
Well, you can have the same conversation about people who play in the World Series, the coaching selection, the referee selection, the home plate umpire selection. All those become very, very highly scrutinous before anything's ever talked about, because they want to make
That's
sure
why they should do a lottery.
Yes.
They should just do a lottery. Who cares? Just pick them randomly. That way you don't fight, because every guy that's an umpire at some point will probably get an opportunity to do that. But if it's always the same guys, like, just do a lottery. They're all doing the same games. The only thing that's different is it's more televised, probably.
That's a very interesting
Great.
point.
Yeah, great.
Look, in 2013, something basically, well, let's just say tragic to say the least. So you had knee surgery, repair a torn meniscus. You were ruled out for the remainder of that season. And look, injuries can happen to anybody, and it's something you specifically can attest to because it's part of any sport. But there are certain battles from a personal perspective. I've talked to a lot of players, and from a personal standpoint, they either go out kicking and screaming, or they take their humility pill and the repair pill and say, well, it's time to heal. But a torn meniscus is not exactly something that, anybody sits out with and says, you know what, I'll be back in a short amount of time. So it used to Cincinnati Reds in 2013. How are you able to maintain your composure, not only from a mental standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint, knowing that in just 8 months, there'd be a high likelihood you're going to be traded?
Well, I actually got designated, so it was even more humbling. That's a long story. But yeah, I tore my knee in my first 4-hit game in Miami in my career. I just started to get hot that week, and Russell Martin and his good nature went in and made sure I started playing more. So I was getting more opportunity that week. I got a couple hits against Cincinnati, had 4 hits, and then slid into second base, and my meniscus got stuck underneath my kneecap when it tore. I couldn't bend my knee, but what kept me going is I finished that game and we won. I couldn't run, I couldn't stand, I couldn't do much, but I finished the game. We won the game, and at that moment I was like, I'm coming back better. This is an opportunity to grow.
All about the team, Michael. All about the team.
I mean, I don't know how you can be any other way in sports and life. I'm a huge military advocate. I have a bunch of buddies that served, and if you're not for a team, I just don't know what you're living for. But at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, when I left, I was upset because I was getting close. I was going to arbitration, and it sucked. It really did. I knew it was my last Pirates game, but at the end of the day, I knew, all right, this is your opportunity.
Last Pirates game as a player.
As a player, exactly. But I knew it was my opportunity to grow. So I took it as an advantage instead of a disadvantage like I hear all the time. I took ownership. I studied my swing. I studied everyone's swing that's similar to mine, and I broke my swing apart during my rehab.
Well, it showed during your call up to the St. Louis Cardinals. You had a great minor league season that year.
Right. Well, it was actually the 2014 when I was signed back with Colorado was the real part of it. The next knee surgery was the St. Louis Cardinals, because I had them both. Because I had a tilted meniscus at birth, very, very rare, and it was going to tear at some point. But because of that, I was able to repair them. So I have full meniscus, and likelihood of getting a knee replacement goes significantly down because of that. So that's good.
That is very good.
When you left, and I'll say left because for all intents and purposes, the Pirates were doing everything right with having you there. But did you leave everything out on the diamond when you ended your time with the Pirates?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know, but like while I was there, I would venture to say my whole big league career, I won more games than I lost when I was on the diamond, because I was an advocate about it. Ross, when he won the World Series, said every single game I get to play, whether it's once a week or once every 5 days, I just want to win. I want to do whatever it takes to win because that's my day. That was my mentality too. When he said it, I was like, that's awesome. That's a brother right there. He's going to live and die to win that day. And I'll tell you right now, I played against that guy a lot. We had some knockout, drag-out battles trying to win as backup catchers, and it was a blast.
I think that contributed to what coach told me about your days at MTSU, that you were a winner. He said, in quotes, that you were the guy, the total package. And I think that your winning mentality, your put the team first, put others first, and correct me if I'm wrong, really contributed into your new venture as more of a coach.
Yeah, to be honest, I think ever since I was in college, maybe right after college and pro ball, maybe a couple years, I would say probably it really hit me after 2014. I tore my knee really early in spring, and I played through it almost a whole year, and I struggled. It was awful. But during that year, I knew I wasn't physically able to do what I could, and I just loved being able to help the guys. I think I'm destined to coach. I think my love is really to be a manager and to lead men, not to be a player. And that's what ultimately made me walk away from the game.
At that point, did you start helping out at MTSU?
I always did. Yeah, I always was. I have been for years. But
that's what I thought.
It's something that I didn't notice and I wasn't thinking about because I was also focused on being the best player I could be. But then I noticed that I was trying to help people more than I was trying to help myself. I was putting myself second constantly.
It's not a bad thing in life.
It's not, but where baseball is and where professional sports is, a lot of times you can't do that. You have to find a really, really strong balance. And I had that balance at times, but I realized that I'm supposed to be, and my calling is more on the other side, leading men to be the best man they can be, not only on the diamond, but, off the field, best husband they can be, the best son they can be, the best father they can be, because that's more important. And at the end of the day, if you do those things well, it's going to make you a better ball player anyways.
That's very admirable outlook, Mr. McKenry.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Those types of elements are something that is, I'll be honest, it's becoming more transparent as seasons go on in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, in the NBA. And I believe that from an admirable standpoint, to be able to give back consistently is something that will make you just a better person, which in turn will give you the feeling of wanting to do the same thing over and over and over again to bring the best out of people. You said it well, Michael, in regards to how you help people and in what ways you help them, which ultimately will help them become better people so they can pay that forward, so they can move on to the next part of their career, whether it be professionally, personally, or a combination of those two things. When you were signed back onto the Rockies in January 2014, was the second stint with them more like a solace situation? Did you feel comfortable being back with the club that originally had drafted you? And did you feel that by being there, you would probably have a better stint there than you did initially?
I felt like I had a lot of unfinished business. I was kind of forced out the door. I never really got an opportunity. So, I kind of had a little chip on my shoulder to get back there and do something. And I hate when people talk about you can't pitch at Coors Field, it's a hitter's park, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters. If you go out there, compete, and try to win. Like, okay, your ERA may be a little bit higher. Well, let's figure it out and make it lower. Like, there's plenty of people that can pitch there. Let's figure it out. And, that's what I try to do every single day is just try to figure out how to make it work no matter what. And I had a blast doing it. But the unfinished business was one of the points, and the other point was I was comfortable. Coming up, it was a 7-month, rehab, and going somewhere where I knew the trainers, I knew the people there, I knew the head doctor, all of them. So it was very comfortable. I knew they weren't going to try to push me. And I actually remember going in and they told me, hey, like, do you think you could really go full go in the big leagues? And I said, I want to go to AAA, make sure I'm right and get better. And then I'll see you guys soon. And I got called up in May and got sent back down. Then I got called up for good, I think, at the very end of May. And I wouldn't have been able to say that somewhere else. but I was that comfortable with Bill Guyvet and those guys over there. So, Dan O'Dowd, Bill Guyvet, and I love Bridage, the GM now. He's an awesome dude. So that comfort level was a huge part. I actually turned down a couple guaranteed big league jobs that year to sign a minor league contract with Colorado because of that. I was betting on myself.
Confidence.
No, that's just trusting my Lord and Savior right there. That was a lot of prayer, because you start turning down money as a backup player, you better know why you're doing it, So
Love it.
Because our turnaround's a lot faster than, a superstar. Guaranteed contracts for anybody is really special. So
yeah, amen to that one.
Amen.
And I believe when you look back at your career, and you moved on to the Rangers, and you played with the Cardinals, the Braves, the Brewers, the Rays. Were any of those stops along the way more special than being with the Pirates, or was there any individual team that you were on that you consider just probably being your least favorite?
I'll keep that to myself. The least favorite, but yeah, people sometimes forget that it is a business. So there's plenty of times where, you're playing better than the guy that's on the field, but the only person you compete with is yourself, in my opinion, and you're doing everything right and you're still not getting an opportunity. There's times where, it's not a team in the minor leagues. It's all about, this guy's got to throw today because he's got to throw today. He's a prospect. And then the competing and the nature of actual winning is gone. Instead of hey, when he goes to the big leagues, he's going to throw 2 to 3 days in a row. You can't rest him every day. You can't do this stuff. I understand development, but there's a point where you just got to drop the diaper and let him go. And that was the hardest part for me, is getting a guy to understand how to compete and feeling like he had a harness on a lot. And I actually told later on in my career, I was kind of that bridge between players and coaches. And I would say that. I would say that to assistant GMs, the GM. I was very straightforward, because my interest was my teammates at all times. If they weren't willing to speak up and stand up for themselves, and vice versa, I stuck up for plenty of GMs and assistant GMs and coaches when the player was dogging those guys. I'm like, listen, you don't have their job. You got to understand that they're making a lot of decisions too, and it's not as easy as it is. There's a lot more that goes into it. And every team I was on, I felt like that was under time. So there's my heart. I love them, and Colorado as well. Also where I spent the most time, so that's probably why. But I created forever relationships. Obviously, I'm going back to Pittsburgh, being an analyst, and I'm going to have full access in the locker room and do everything else except take BP and suit up.
A little bit different, I'd say.
No doubt. A little different, but it's a place I want to be.
Easy decision to make, though. You go from playing, and then here comes almost 7 months later, and you were reached out by the Pirates to say to come in our analysts, and clearly we were talking offline about how they retired from Pirates analysts last year. I would say retirement, at least from the playing baseball standpoint, now to analyzing baseball standpoint. Thoughts about this inquiry by the Pirates? Was it something you always wanted to do?
So when I got hurt in 2013, I didn't sit around and mope. When I wasn't rehabbing, I was speaking. And when I wasn't speaking, I did 11 days of the pre and post game analyst for Root Sports at the time. Now it's AT&T. And when Teague said he was going to retire, they had that film and they looked at it, and they called me in July, I believe, and asked me, we know you're still playing, but we want to throw this offer out here. I'd love for you to just come interview. So I did, and I won the job, and it made my decision very, very hard to play or not to play. And then I watched John Gruden's speech about being an analyst, and I called them that night and said I'm in, and I retired.
Wow.
That's amazing. And there's always a jump when you look at where you were being behind the diamond, and regardless of whether you were backup or not, you still suited up. You did it day in and day out, regardless of whether you played or not. You were very consistent. But now you're facing a totally new endeavor, a new role, a new position.
I know, new challenge is my favorite. Let's go.
Exactly. That when
Be a warrior.
Exactly.
Oh, I can't wait.
When these challenges are presented to you, and at least we'll use your baseball persona and relate that to the challenges that you face, whether you're going to play or not, whether you're going to be sent out, sent packing to the Braves or the Cardinals or from the Pirates. I mean, what types of challenges do you believe that this specific endeavor you'll face moving forward?
Well, first off, I'm not going to have to travel anymore, so stress is going to go down a little bit. I'm still able to live in Tennessee. I'm going to treat it like a baseball season for the time being and kind of go back and forth. But the biggest thing is TV. I mean, I'm going to have to learn it. I'm going to have to learn where my screen is, when my cues are, timing, create relationship with my new teammates in the studio. I'm going to have to learn and grow a lot. I'm going to study a lot. I'm going to do a lot of things different. I'm going to treat it like I am catching that game. I'm going to prepare like that. I'm going to work off scouting reports. I'm going to analyze video. I'm learning analytics, as in Flight Scope, TrackMan, Rapsodo, all that stuff, so I can read better, make people understand launch angles, make people understand bat speed, ball barrels, all the numbers that they're talking about that seem like weird science. I'm going to try to relay that to people at the same time, remembering how hard the game is, and being a good big brother to these guys, not a good Richard, as in you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want to be,
Yeah.
I want to be real. I want to be honest. I want to be very truthful, but I also want to be very transparent and let them know, like, I'm here to help you. I'm not the guy that's going to beat you down, because I know how hard it is. And then there's a lot more to this game than just showing up, putting on your cleats and going. So I'm here, and hopefully I can create a relationship that way.
Michael, if this endeavor is anything like your playing career as a catcher, you're going to be just fine, my friend.
I appreciate it. I feel like I've been doing it forever anyways. It's having had a screen in front of me, and now I get to learn some different attributes.
It's definitely going to be different.
No doubt. I got a suit and tie. It's going to be different. Maybe they'll let me wear a uniform on camera every now and then just to feel normal. Maybe a mask.
Yeah, maybe a ball cap.
Just suit up and full catcher's gear.
Yeah, there you go. You have a little marks on your face too. Maybe that'll,
Oh, yeah, a little eye black. Maybe I just go warrior style.
There you go. Yeah, just minus
I like that.
minus the headdress. I guess.
Yeah, we'll stay away from that.
To kind of fast forward a little bit, they're practicing out in Bradenton right now, and the Pirates spring training schedule is already out. They face off against the Tampa Bay Rays on the 23rd, and then go on to play against the Yankees, the Tigers, the Red Sox, the Braves, the Sox again, the Blue Jays, and the Orioles. There was some conversation around David Freese and the fact that he thought as though they didn't do as well because of their environment and his environment. He was speaking, sounds like he was speaking for the team. And he's quoted as saying that he walked in every day to win, and it just had in the air, and that is what you need. Michael, whirlwinds, trade talk, it happened. Andrew McCutchen no longer with the San Francisco Giants, former 2013 NL MVP, game winner in 2015, really helped you wonder. I'm still wondering what David Freese's comments were interpreted as, and when you look at those comments, what are your thoughts about them?
Well, let me ask you one question. Where was Houston Astros 2 years ago?
I'm sorry?
Who was talking about, where was the Houston Astros?
Nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you right now, like, people are at, it is frustrating. You know, Kutch is a great friend of mine too, but this move is great for him. And I don't know if it's great for the organization yet, because they may have gotten a McCutcheon. They may have gotten someone that's just as good or better than Cole through the McCutcheon trade, because they got an arm, they got an infielder. Same thing with Cole. Like, you don't know what you have. But what I do know about that team is Jay Hay, even with his comments he's made, that guy's going to come to play every single day. And if he leads that team and he takes on the role that Kutch had, I feel confident in them, because their arms, barring a Cervelli getting hurt, you know, because it's going to be tough without having a little bit of guidance. I think their catching is good behind Cervelli, but they're young, and leading a staff in the major leagues, especially a young staff, that could be difficult. I've done it a couple different times, but their arms are top notch, and Ray Searage is top notch.
How do you feel about McGuire?
At MTSU? Or who are you talking
about? Reese McGuire. Is he still in the Pirate system?
Oh, yeah, the kid that got traded to Toronto?
Oh, he's with Toronto now.
Yeah, they traded him to Toronto recently. Yeah, I think he's going to be a very good player. But all said and done, you know, like, I think going back to that team-first mentality, like, guys that become Navy SEALs, they show up as normal people. And then they become elite, right?
Right.
Nobody gets to the big leagues that isn't really, really good. And all it takes is one swing or one throw or one game, and someone can become elite. They become special. So my thing is, it's the right mindset, the right leadership, and those guys take ownership and say, oh, yeah, you guys don't think we're going to be good? Well, watch. And just go do it. I got told my whole life I wasn't good enough. I got told I was never going to be this. I was never going to be that. Like, I had learning disabilities. I couldn't speak in front of people. Well, guess what? I'm going on TV. If I would have listened to everybody, I would have never made it. So, like, I hate when people, like, try to throw, and they may be terrible. Like, you have no idea, but you have to play all 162 to find out. And I think they have ability. I think they have talent. They've got, like, 7 guys that throw, like, 98 or above. I mean, that's special in itself. So, like, if people will back them and be a part of that team, I'd like to see what happens, to be honest.
Well,
I mean,
we'll
see. Like,
fan, I know that the return that the Pirates got from Garrett Cole was quite good.
Yeah, and you know, I think
coming over there, Moran deserves to be a big league player. I think he's going to be very good for you. Joe Musgrove pitched very well out of the bullpen, and who knows,
right.
Maybe they'll start him as a starter, and if he doesn't have success, then he's setup man extraordinaire. So
yeah, and I'm with you. I'm with you.
Well.
Like, I just can't. I don't think you can ever say, like, I mean, if you look at the NBA season right now, you put the Cavaliers on paper before the season started, even though they had some holes. I mean, they had 3 MVPs on the same team.
Right. You thought they
doesn't
were
always
be
make you
number
good.
one in the East.
Right. Now they went and got, like, younger players, role players, and set up a team around their best player. I get it. But, like, I mean, at the end of the day, you just got to wait and see. And, you know, talking to Neil Huntington, I got to talk to him for about an hour and a half. Like, they have a vision. They're not just grasping for straws here. They have a vision.
No,
and
he's a smart man. He's a very smart man.
Right. That trade wasn't easy for him, and I think people think it was. And I really don't think it was.
It's never easy to give up your franchise player.
Right. And Kutch didn't want to leave. I know that for sure. But at the end of the day, I would really, really hope everybody would just want to see what happens instead of, like, constantly, like, I encourage you guys to read an article about Brian Flannery. The guy just wrote an article about him.
The second baseman.
Yeah, he plays all over for the Orioles. Just signed a minor league deal with the Phillies. He's a career .213 hitter, and when the Phillies signed him, all you heard was garbage. He's terrible, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, he's in the big leagues, and he's been there for some reason for 6 years. But I would take any guy, I don't care who it is, even the best player in the major leagues, giving him a bat every 5-6 days against some of the best arms, in the world, and let's see if he still hits 330 with 30 homers. It's not going to happen. These guys, sometimes giving guys chances and the right guys chances with the right makeup is what needs to happen.
The right hitting coach, the right opportunity.
Yeah, just the right ownership. And David Freese is exactly right. You can put a band. I mean, San Francisco last year, on paper, I would have picked them to be in World Series contention in a heartbeat. And they were one of the worst teams in baseball.
Happens all the time.
Right. So it's not always about what you've done. It's like, okay, well, what are you going to do? What are you preparing to do now? How are we preparing to win now? Not what you've done and how you've done it. Let's see what you can do now. Let's have these guys step up and see what happens.
Well, like I like to say, there's a reason that the mirror in the front of the car is larger than the one in the back.
Believe it. You're the only person that can tell yourself if you did it right in the dark, right? By yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have to be able to step up to the challenge. And when you step up to the
No
challenge, you have a lot of things in front of you. You're going to have your naysayers. You're going to have your negativists out there. You're going to have people that are going to do everything they can to make sure that whatever time you have being spent, regardless of what professional sport, they're going to try to make you feel bad. Let's go back to the Cavaliers for a minute. They have had a lot of injuries. And when you look at what Dan Gilbert has done, people are slamming down Gilbert, say, you know what, why is he going to give up all of these players? Well, they got back some pretty nice returns. I want to see the returns for the Pirates translate in a very similar fashion. They have spring training. That's what's going on right now. Cavaliers are in the thick of things, being third in the Eastern Conference. And, of course, the Celtics being the favorites in that group. But again, it's about the moves, but more importantly, it's what those individuals do in their respective positions that will count individually as well as in a team format, in a team setting. And so I think David Freese is probably more so referring. I don't know if you know David or not. I don't. I've never met him. Never had a chance to talk to him.
I do.
Okay.
He's a good dude.
Right. He is, and he's been very, very consistent. That's why the Pirates agreed to a $3 million one-year contract, reached 11 last year, covering this year as well. But I think more importantly, I think David Freese is talking out of frustration because of the lack of a winning edge. Pirates ended up not even playing 500 ball, second to last in the NL Central. So when you look at how thick, everybody was talking about how the team of and I'm not talking about the Pirates, that the bottom end team and the Reds would find their way. And they were playing consistent ball in the beginning, but then they fell off. And I think the Pirates fell off right alongside of them. Of course, Michael McKenry, Ryan Sack joined me here on the Rude Dog Show. When we look at the season moving forward, Michael, from an analytical standpoint, me and Francisco Cervelli follow one another on social media. He's not really on it a whole lot during the offseason, but he's on it a heck of a lot during the regular season. Probably one of the best catchers, and I don't think there's enough conversation surrounding him as an individual player. But when you look at Cervelli and when you look at what he brings to the defense as well as the offense, catching the ball, blocking the play, doing all those fantastic things that he brings, he's a fan favorite. There is no doubt about that. But moving forward, because he has to be able to catch from a variety of sources, and of course with no Kutch in there defensively in the outfield, he's gone. You were talking about Jay Hay earlier. I look for him to step it up and becoming another fan favorite, which he is, but I think he takes the next step this year. And to David Freese's point about not being a winner the last couple of years, I think the Pirates turned the corner. Know that they necessarily, as a collective unit, have been able to find out who their strong players are or are not. I guess the question is, or the multi-million-dollar question rather, is did Bob Nutting do enough to put this in the 2018 season above 500 ball and possibly even get to an 80-game win season?
I have no idea. I wish I could tell you. There's a lot more that goes into it than Bob Nutting. So, you have Frank Coonley, you have Neil, you have Kyle, you have Broadway, you have all the coaching staff in the major leagues, you have the video people. I mean, everybody's got to do their part. I mean, it's a unit. You know, that track that they're on right now needs to be narrow, and they need to keep throwing that coal in the fire to keep that. That's honestly what needs to happen. But I think, and I talked to Neil about this, I think it's really important they create an identity. You know, we at Middle Tennessee, and we came up with the motto, just burn the ships. Nobody thinks we're going to win anyways. Burn the ships. We have no choice but to win the fight. Just burn the ships. So I think they need to figure out, I think they need to figure out what their identity is. And I hope to get down to spring training and be around the guys and stuff. But like guys like David Freese and Cervelli and those guys step up as leaders, I think it's going to really help. And it's going to, you know, really impact those young guys. And if those young guys come in with their hair on fire, ready to go, that's something you can't teach. You can't effort. You can't teach humble ability to go out and play every single day, no matter what. You can't teach the hard-nosed, gritty Pirate way. That's the things those people need. They need to play as the underdog, but at the same time understand that, like, I mean, they probably got 4 or 5 first-rounders, maybe more. They have a lot of anticipation on that. Like, nobody's talking about Glasnow. Glasnow's the best pitcher I saw last year in the minor leagues. I mean, not even close. I called him the Marvel. You know, he was part of the Marvel crew, the comics, because as soon as he understands, he comes from the clouds, from outer space, and he's got an absolute cat, and he's throwing. So, like, they have a lot of ability. You know, I hated seeing Cole go. He's a friend of mine. I hated seeing Andrew go. He's a friend of mine. But I've been on a ton. When I was in Colorado, they traded their franchise player. And what happened a year later?
There was outrage at the time as well.
Right, but they were in the playoffs. But there's a lot more to that trade that nobody will ever know about, and I'll never speak of, that it needed to happen. They needed it for him. The organization needed it for them, and it just happened. I don't know as much about.
There's a lot of behind the scenes that the fans they don't know.
Right, but all I'm saying is you can always outperform. Milwaukee did it last year.
Yes, and I think they'll be very good this year.
They're going to be very, very good. You know, Lorenzo Cain is an incredible addition. His energy, yes. But all these guys saying this, like Lorenzo Cain has to stay on the field. He's been hurt. Cervelli's got to stay on the field. He's been hurt. He is one of the better catchers, especially receiving and calling a game in baseball. He may be 1 or 2 in that mix.
3 for sure.
Yeah, so, but he's got to stay on the field. You know, that's the most important thing. That's where I think the Pirates could get hurt. You know, you go young, it's tough because you go young and then you're even younger when if you lose somebody.
Right. You know, those guys aren't accustomed to playing 160 games.
Right, and they're used to the development. They're used to
play that many games in college.
Right. Well, it's not even the games. They're not used to going in and having to find a way every day because they're getting coddled a little bit in the minor leagues. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Right. I mean, it's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, there were so many teams like the New York Yankees, who probably has one of the best farm systems, and I've mentioned it here on the show before. They've had one of the best farm systems for the last 5 to 10 years, at least, minimum. And I've given that probably a little bit of leg room. The Pirates don't have that yet. They're working on it. They're building. They have been. My biggest question moving forward, because they're so young, because they're vibrant, because they're not in a must-win game situation, bottom of the ninth, you have scorers at running position, you got a guy at the plate, you're battling with him after pitch, and he just keeps nicking the ball. Will the Pirates be able to turn the corner? Is my biggest question this year. And I'm not just talking playing 500 ball. I'm talking a consistent after win into a consecutive win situation. That's what I'm waiting to see from the Pirates. And I know the NL Central has tons of great. You were mentioning Milwaukee ended up coming short, but they played above 500. Cardinals a little short, playing above 500. Cubs have been contenders the last 5 years, up and coming. Also fell short. But you mentioned Houston. You have a very valid point there in that they were basically nobody 3 years ago. I mean, they were also building. They were also doing a very similar thing winning less than 500, season after season after season. And this is probably one of the least 500 seasons for the Pirates in the last 5 to 7 years. So would you tend to waver on the side of waiting to see what these guys will be like and what the coaching staff could really turn them and help develop them into, not turn into, but help develop them into being not only the person that they can be, but the player that can be, which in turn can be translated into being a collective winning assortment of players, just like Houston had last year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a different team than they've had in the past. I think they're going to have a lot of guys that are moving on the base pass. They're going to have a lot of different things going because they're not going to hit the ball at the yard like they used to without Kutch and Pedro and guys like Garrett Jones and, guys that they've lost. But, who's to say Sean Rodriguez doesn't pop out 25 homers with every day at bats? Who's to say Freese doesn't hit 20 homers? It's tough to say. So, what I would say, and I'll leave it at this, is they can never be satisfied and they have to continue to get better on a daily basis. And if they do that, I'll take them. I'll take them as far as you want because I trust Clint Hurdle and that coaching staff that they're going to lead and they're going to do the right things to help those guys take ownerships of their career. And I think if those guys go out and they understand, hey, I need to do what I got to do to be better and to compete and to try to win today, period. And then once that day's over with, you go to the drawing board, figure it out, what happened, why did we not win? Let's go back and let's win this one. And if they can just think about it like that, because they're going to have stumbles, they're going to have mistakes, because they are human and they are young. But I think at the end of the day, you can't lose until you play. So you can make every prediction, you can do everything you want, but at the end of the day, you can't lose until you play. And the cool part about baseball is you play 162 games. So they could go 0-30 and then win the next 70 games, and they're 40 games over 500. It's just you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is and wants it to be. It's not black and white. It's in that gray area. So, it's hard to say.
I have seen a lot of happen for the Pirates moving forward. Fans are obviously in a roar, and of course, ownership seldomly.
And they're allowed to be. That's the cool part. They're allowed to be. They're the fans.
I like that outlook.
Yeah.
I like that outlook.
Well, they're
allowed to have their opinion, but that's something that should motivate the guys, the fans back. Those are my people. They're the 10th man. We got to get them back. Let's win. Let's win for them. This is for them. Maybe that's their motto. Are so important. And that fan base is incredible. So having them back you is huge. But I also don't think the players deserve what's kind of happening right now. I can't control it at all. All you can do is show up and play. So you can say you can have everything you want, but the players can't control any of it. All they can do, I had no control when I got traded. Kutch had zero control. These guys in Miami had control because they asked for it. But even then, you still don't really have control unless you have a no-trade clause. Because it is a business, and they're playing us like we're stock market. I don't think this guy's going to be as good this year. We're going to move him. I'm going to do this, So everybody's got their punished for.
Sounds fair. I'll be honest with you. I'm a fan as well, and as disheartened as I am about the consistent players that either underperform or underachieve. Look, I understand from at least from an athletic standpoint in regards to players' mentalities, and losing unfortunately carries with you. You have to be able to have a short memory, and I think in some manner of speaking, a lot of these players that have not either performed to the best of find themselves, losing game after games. If have to be able to have that short memory to put that losing behind them, to focus on the winning and to focus on those things that they can develop and acquire development from the entire coaching staff to say, hey, look, where am I going wrong? need somebody else to not sugarcoat it and say, well, you'll be okay. No, I want to know how to. I want to know in what way can I be better? In what ways can I be better? What ways can I develop into being somebody who's not only an effective baseball player, but maybe something's going on in my life that's disabling me from having the reality of being able to be the best that I can be because of those distractions. What would your message be, Michael, to those guys that are, and what would you tell them?
Take ownership. That's it. And if they ask me what ownership is, don't allow anybody to control your career or your situation but yourself.
Good
Period.
advice.
Trust in yourself and trust in God.
Yep. Take ownership. Like, take ownership in, like, all the debates, everything that happens. I think sometimes people just need to take ownership. Like, see both sides, understand both sides. Like, just take ownership. Like, learn it. If you want to be a front office guy and make opinions about everything, then learn it. And then when you start making those points, it changes everything. Completely changes everything, because you are literally in the thick of it. You're completely enthralled in it. So when you're saying, well, actually the analytics say that you shouldn't have done this because the analytics say this guy's actually going to get better because in his career and blah, 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 through these 100 at-bats, whenever he's done bad, he's always gotten better. So it doesn't make sense. It is actually undervalued. So $10 million is not that big of a deal. So you're actually doing really good right now by paying this guy $10 million instead of guys that don't come even the same wins over replacement. You could start. People start doing that. Like, you could call for anything. I mean, but that extreme ownership is huge, especially as a player. Everybody would have sooner, because at the end of the day, I don't want to make an excuse for anybody, especially myself, because it's not their fault.
You'll be able to tell that to players now.
Yeah, and I will. I'm going to spend time with these guys. They've offered me opportunity to speak to these guys, hang out with these. They told me I could be in uniform. Yeah, and I want to. Like, I pursued that. Like, I pursued being able to watch film and study, you know, be able to contact them if I see something. And yeah, I'm very wiry, and I'm not going to call. I'll make it known. I'm available if you need me, like, period. So you have to take
someday you're gonna do great things, Mr. McKenry. GM something.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I have to double that, because when you're a player's coach, and I think Clint Hurdle can probably attest to this, he's a player's coach. He understands. He has realistic conversations. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. And if you're a coach or general manager, you can't. You just cannot, because you're feeding negativism of that individual player. You have that player coach type mentality, and the way that you're approaching it will make you a very good coach, not only from an analytical standpoint, because that's obviously a given. You're going to be on TV, so that's a given. But more importantly, I think the message that these gentlemen will receive from you and be able to analyze from you is real, and it's realistic, and it's not a sugarcoat. It's the message of take ownership. You'll find yourself in better waters if you do just that. So, Michael, thank you so much for coming on. It was very insightful having you on. I appreciate your time. I wish you the best in the new role that you're taking on. And would love to have you on the show, maybe an all-star break or something, to kind of give me your thoughts as to where the Pirates are in the season, and go on about, you know, the NL Central and how other do this.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Talking to you as well, Michael.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, you're a good soul, guys. God bless you.
Yeah, thank you. God bless you too, and safe travels. Thanks again. I appreciate everybody from coming on. Ryan, I want to thank you as well. It was great having you on. I look forward to doing it again with.
It was great to be on, Rudy. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to that.
Sounds great. With that said, hey, this is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show with Michael McKenry. Current new position, new role, but he remains to be from the end to end. So with that said, Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in.